This is the blank for the heel block. It's a block of wood that goes inside the guitar at the head of the body, and it's what the neck attaches to, the heel of the neck. So sometimes it's called a head block, sometimes called a heel block. I use both terms. They're the same thing. This blank is just a little bit too long for the height that I want my heel block to be. So I need to trim it. That looks pretty good. So I'll check it for square, and if it's square, which it is, I'll move on. The heel block tapers from the front, where the top of the guitar would be, to the back of the guitar. And it's because the back has got more of a pronounced arch to it than the top. And so I have to cut an angle in the back portion of the heel block that matches that taper. And here you see I put a piece of wood in there to keep my jaws from racking and my vise, and I have to flip that over to make the final cut because my saw will not cut deep enough to go all the way across. It's not a big deal. You do the best you can, and then you don't worry about it. You'll see me here. Right now I'm going to flip it. And finish the cut. Now if it doesn't come out perfect, and this one doesn't, it's not a big deal, because I own a hand plane and I know how to use it. I would encourage you, even if you use power tools, to learn a little bit about how to use hand tools, because they come in handy a lot of times. I prefer the hand tool. I use power tools when they suit what I'm doing. Now you see the angle on that block? That's quite a bit of angle. It's actually too much. And I had to recut that angle to a more shallow angle. I don't show this on this video, but truing it up and squaring it up is the same. What I'm doing here is the same thing I did once I got that angle where it was supposed to be. So this is the process. Take a hand plane and you square it up, straighten it up, level it up till you get it where you want it. Check it with a square and make fine adjustments where needed. Now this is the tail block. Just like there's a heel block or head block, the tail or butt of the guitar has a tail block. And I basically just have to cut this to length. And the guitar is deeper at the heel, at the butt end, than it is at the heel end of the guitar, or the neck end of the guitar. The back of the guitar, the back of the sides, from about the middle of the waist toward the neck heel, tapers in order to create that dome that we're talking about for the back of the guitar. And actually mine is not really a spherical, it's more more an oval type shape. But this is the traditional way, or my take on the traditional way that they were made when before they had radius dishes and stuff like that. And this is the way most classical guitars are constructed as well. The back is constructed in this manner, or pretty close to it. Once again, a square and hand plane till you get it square, straight, and level. And so now, where the heel and the tail block meet the guitar's sides at the head and the tail of the guitar, that area is not flat. It has a curve to it. It's very slight, but it's there. So I take a hand plane to start with and rough that curve in with the hand plane. And then what I'll do, you won't see me do it, but to explain the process, I'll take and put a piece of sandpaper between where the heel block, where it meets the guitar sides on the inside of the guitar, and the body mold. You see me checking that curve against the body mold. As a final step, I'll lay some sandpaper against that body mold there at that spot and move that heel block up and down until I sand or finish sand that curve into the back of the heel block that meets the body. Now you see I've already glued the tail block in, and now I've got to glue the head block. And the head block is the most important one, or heel block, because it's got to be square, it's got to be straight, because that's where the neck attaches. And if I get it off, if it's not square, if it's not straight, the neck won't be. The angle of the neck to the body, the height of the strings off the fretboard, all of that will be more difficult and maybe even impossible to get right, and the guitar won't play right if I don't do this right. That's why I chose to use a body mold. Campiano uses a workboard, and that's who I'm basically following and adjusting for this body mold or whatever other techniques I decide to use instead. I'm using Campiano and Nadelson's book as a guideline. William Campiano that book is supposed to be the Bible of the craft of making guitars, and I'm using it as reference. But the body mold really helps to guarantee that I've got the heel block and the tail block square and straight, 90 degrees, straight up and down, the way it's supposed to be. and you see that the heel block is much shorter than the tail block, and that now you begin to see the taper, or how the taper will look. And you got to fiddle around with it and move it around and lay the mold on its side and all that jazz to get the clamps the way that they're supposed to be on the heel block, to make sure that everything's clamped good and there's good contact between all the surfaces. I need more clamps. I think that's the cry of pretty much every woodworker or guitar builder. I need more clamps. And you gotta twist them around, turn them around, however you have to be able to lock them down too. Those little red-handled Bessie clamps, I love those little suckers, the little 4-inch Bessie clamps. And there they are, glued in. Gonna let that dry overnight, and then we can move the clamps.